everybody. This is Casey Harriet here, and you guys are at the Learn to Hunt Archery class. Oh, I got a phone call. Someone's trying to get on. Once again, my name is Casey Harriet. I'm the archery coordinator for the Department of Wildlife Conservation and National Wild Turkey Federation. R3 stands for Recruitment, Retention, and Reactivation. So essentially, I help to create programs and initiatives that keep people out hunting and get people out hunting. So today we're going to be talking about deer archery, and I have the big game biologist Dallas Barber here to go over the presentation that he put together for us and talk to us a little bit about deer archery. And then we have Jacob Harriet, the Lincoln County Game Warden, that's going to go over regulations. And before we get into the presentation, we will have a Q&A at the end. So if you think of any questions as we go through our presentations, please just type them in the chat box and we will field them at the end of the class. So without any further ado, here's Dallas Barber. I'll have you share your screen.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for showing up. Like Casey said, I am Dallas Barber. I'm the big game biologist for the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. So essentially that means that I take care of all of our deer, elk, and antelope programs across the state, kind of that 30,000 foot species management on a statewide basis. So we will go ahead and get started with the presentation. This is a presentation that Kelly Boyer, our education specialist over in the archery in the schools program created. So wanted to give kudos where it was due. He put this together for a presentation a couple years ago, but I've kind of updated and refreshed some stuff here. So we'll start going over stuff. So the biggest thing with archery that I get people asking about is where to hunt. There are a lot of different areas that you can hunt deer with archery. It is actually probably the most accessible method for hunting here in our state. We've got OLAP properties that are open to hunting. We've got Corps of Engineers land. A lot of that's open up to archery hunting. And then, of course, you have ODWC, WMA. Most all of those are all open to hunting. And then you've obviously got private land access. If that's something that you have access to, that's always an option for you. If you are curious about where you can go, if you go to our website, wildlifedepartment.com, and click on hunting and then hunting resources, and then click on deer.
Can we ask everybody to mute themselves, please? I think we're getting a lot of feedback. So I'm having trouble muting everybody as you guys come in. So please mute yourselves.
Okay, back to your scheduled programming. If you go to that website and click on hunting and then hunting resources and then click on deer, if you scroll down just a little bit, there is a tab that says archery, and that'll bring up all of the areas that are open to archery hunting that we manage as the wildlife department. So with one thing in kind of the back of your mind, just make sure that you head to your reg book and check the individual WMA rules and regulations, because there can be some times when those areas are closed to all activities, such as during controlled hunts, things like that.
Okay, once again, mute yourselves, please.
Okay, you heard the lady. You're about to get in trouble. Just a couple different, types of bows for bow hunting. The legal descriptions of those can be found in the reg books as far as draw weight requirements, broadhead width requirements, things like that. But you have, your traditional bows, recurve bows, long bows, things like that, compound bows, and then also crossbows are legal for archery season here in our state. Broadheads, you've got kind of two types of broadheads. They're fixed or traditional style broadheads where those blades are in a fixed position and they don't move at all. Or they're mechanical broadheads that kind of open on deployment. There's cost and, or pros and cons to each of those. That's a decision for you and you alone to make. They both work well. They both can harvest deer. Traditional blinds, as far as hunting goes, there's a ton of different ways to hunt deer. Box blinds, ladder stands, ground blinds, hang-ons, ladder stands, and then here over the last couple of years, these saddles have gotten very, very popular. But the one overarching theme for all that is camouflage. Deer have an incredible sense in their eyesight, and they can make out that human outline really well. So bow hunting is one of those methods that requires to be in close quarters with your game. So blending into your surroundings is something that's crucial, be it in your clothing or be it that you're actually brushing those blinds in. So instead of just plopping a ground blind out on the ground and being this big, kind of brown blob out in the middle of a field, make sure that you brush that blind using some material, from the surrounding area to kind of blend you into your background. Talking a little bit about scouting or stand locations, this is really going to vary on where you hunt. So if you hunt an area where deer are moving quite a bit, the further west you go, the more typical it is for our deer to move a little bit more to get resources that they need. Really, the overarching theme is just put yourself between bedding and food. So whatever the food source is for that time of year, find out what that is. Early season, it tends to be a lot of the green natural forbs that are still on the landscape. Acorns start to come into play there here in a couple weeks. Usually about the first big wind front that we get in October, acorns will really start falling and deer will really start to focus on that as a food source. Later in the year, you start getting into a lot of the agricultural practices that happen here in Oklahoma. Winter wheat or rye crop probably being the biggest attractant for deer late in the season. But you can kind of see this little depiction. This is something where you've gone out and scouted, you've found bedding, you know that there's a food source, you've found sign like tracks or deer scat that just kind of lets you know that you're in the right place at the right time. Just using woodsmanship skills and time in the field is another big one. So the more time you can spend in the field observing deer, the better that you can have as far as chances at a harvest. The biggest thing, if you leave here today learning anything, is that archery tackle or archery equipment is not something that you can just pick up off the shelf and go harvest a deer with. It's incredibly important to practice, knowing yardage and practicing judging those yardage. In a world where we have things like range finders, things can happen. Deer can come in too quickly for you to be able to get a range. Batteries can die. There's a lot of reasons why rangefinders aren't always going to work. So, practicing judging yardages, knowing what your equipment and your limitations are as an archer is another huge one. And, just being an ethical hunter. So, shooting deer at what would be considered unethical distances, just keep that all in mind when you're out in the field. So shot placement, the way that arrows kill deer and the way that bullets kill deer, it's two totally different worlds. Arrows are usually killing deer by hemorrhaging, so they're cutting or disrupting blood flow from internal organs, where rifles, while they are making contact with some of that stuff, causing hemorrhaging, a lot of it is from shock. So it is very important to know where you're shooting your deer and a couple of different things about shot placement here. So it comes down to ethics. It can really determine the success of your hunt, and it sure makes the recovery and the processing of those deer a heck of a lot easier if you're making good shots. So looking at this little diagram, the money spot being this heart and lung area that's kind of tucked right behind the shoulder. Gotta mute some people.
Okay.
There we go. Talking about, shooting deer with a bow, broadside is obviously the most preferred shot angle that you're going to have. This gives you the most room for error when making a shot because there's a big difference between shooting dots in your backyard on your bow target and actually shooting a deer. Adrenaline's high. You only get to shoot one arrow, so it's not like you've gotten to warm up in the backyard to go shoot a deer. So broadside's the preferred shot angle here. Just tucking that arrow behind the shoulder will be in that lung and heart area. Again, broadside, it's easiest to judge where to shoot. Some other options here, quartering away. Again, it's an excellent angle to shoot if those internal organs, where they lie and where you need to aim to put an arrow into those vital organs. Quartering two, it's really something that should be avoided if possible. It's the least optimal shot selection. That scapula and that humerus are very, very dense bone and can ruin a bow hunt in a hurry if you hit one of those. So again, another example of a good broadside shot. You're wanting to aim right there behind the shoulder. The farther back you go, the more that you get kind of into some dangerous territory in regards to recovering your deer. A shot back in the liver is obviously a fatal shot, but recovering that deer is going to be a challenge. Usually you're going to want to wait 8 to 10 hours after shooting a deer back just to allow that animal time to expire. You're also not going to have a whole lot of blood to follow, as that's not a real vascular tissue. Here's an example of quartering away and what that looks like from where you would want to aim. I think the easiest way to think about this is if you aim for the offside shoulder, that's what I kind of tell myself if I'm ever taking a shot at a deer that's quartering away, is try to put that arrow in line with that offside shoulder, and that'll guarantee that you're making a good shot. Quartering two, this is kind of a no-no. And you can see why based on this diagram. So you've got, that scapula and that humerus are blocking a lot of that vital V, as they call it, area. So, you're going to have a hard time slipping an arrow in there. There are people that do it. Obviously, it's all up to you, but it really boils down to, that ethical shot, making an ethical shot as an ethical hunter. Forward facing, again, big no-no. Again, you're going to see some people that have attempted this shot. Sometimes the results are great, sometimes they're not. This really all boils back to knowing your limitations and knowing your equipment. So you can see, again, you have a very, very small margin for error when you're trying to take a forward-facing shot. Facing away, we're going to blitz over that because you don't even want to do it. Reading your shot. So this is something that really only comes with experience. You can watch a million YouTube videos and it just doesn't tell the whole story. So how an animal reacts can tell you a lot about your shot. Always visually mark the location and position on the animal when you shoot. That way you can have a good place to start when you're starting your recovery. So following, you've made your shot. We're going to start by, at least regardless of where you shoot that deer, at a minimum, let's wait 30 minutes to get out of the stand. A lot of the times whenever I'm in the field and I've shot a deer, I take that 30-minute time frame to kind of collect all my stuff, get down out of my blind or my stand, whatever method it is that you're using, get all my stuff kind of packed up, tidied up. Depending on where I'm hunting, I can probably take some of my stuff back to my truck. That way I'm not having to either remember to pick it up, or it just is an easier way to wait for that kind of initial 30 minutes. But start where you shot that animal. It'll give you kind of the first indication of where your shot hit. So looking at blood, it can give you sign of whether we should, make an immediate push to go find this deer because it's more than likely expired, or it can definitely tell you a story on, man, maybe we should wait a little bit to see a little bit more. So if you're unsure, always wait. Disturbing an animal that's yet to expire, your chances of recovering that animal go down drastically if you bump that deer. So this is a big flow chart Kelly put in here. We're not going to go too much into it. Again, this is being recorded. So if you want to go back and kind of look at this flow chart on should I track or should I wait, it's basically, one of those deals where you start up there in that left-hand corner. Did you hit the deer? Yes or no? Does it look like this? Does it look like that? It kind of reads out to what you should do. So again, whenever we post this on the YouTube page, go to this slide and pause it and just kind of learn that. So we were talking about reading blood. What does that mean? So the color of blood, what that blood looks like, any other contents that are with that blood can definitely tell you a story about what it is that you might have hit. If you've hit an artery, there's going to be a lot of blood and it's going to be very bright and very red. So that's things that the heart or, major plumbing can kind of tell you. Lung blood, it's going to be a little lighter in color. A lot of the times you'll have bubbles in that blood. So that's, where the lungs are mixing oxygen with your blood. If you puncture those lungs, you're still going to have air coming into that liquid, which will kind of froth it up. This is a great sign. It means that your deer is more than likely dead and probably not too far away. Liver or muscle, it'll be a lot darker and you're not going to have near as much blood. Intestines or stomach, you're really not going to have a whole lot of blood to be found, and you're also going to have, some green, stomach matter or brown fecal matter on your arrow. A lot of the times you'll see where people will recover an arrow. The first thing they do is they kind of run their nose over it and sniff it. You will know if you've hit a deer in the guts based on what that arrow smells like. Again, there's kind of a little depiction of what that stuff looks like. So we want to see that top arrow or the third arrow. The bottom arrow is definitely something that's telling us, hey, we should probably wait to track this deer. Again, post-shot wait time. This is another flow chart, but I'll pretty much just sum this stuff up for you. Um, if you've made a perfect shot and you know it's really good, still give it 30 minutes. That's, to kind of give that animal the time to expire in a respectful way. That gives you time to collect yourself to where you can make good decisions based on what that arrow tells you or what that blood trail tells you. A lot of the times, you're just so amped up after making that shot that you don't really make good decisions as far as tracking goes. But as far as, a good hit goes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you're good. Liver hits, I usually like to wait 6 or 8 hours for that. Man, anything, behind the liver, I'm at least waiting 10 to 12 hours to go retrieve that deer. That's going to ensure that that deer has gone to one place and one place only and bedded down to expire. So some helpful tips for blood trailing. A lot of this is just based on experience. So some sort of flagging tape can help you tell a story. Just make sure that if you are hunting on public property or private property, that you pick that stuff up. I mean, that's going to be littering regardless of how you look at it. One little I guess tech tip, I use toilet paper because when it gets wet, it dissolves. So if you forget to pick up a piece of it, it just kind of melts away. Compass or GPS, that's kind of old school. A lot of people are going to have a phone with some sort of mapping software in it that can help you. Like Onyx, for example, is one that I use, and it actually has a tracking feature on it that you can turn on and see where you've been. The reason why is because you can look behind you of where you found blood as you're, finding blood, you're tearing off a little piece of toilet paper, putting it on the ground. Um, every 20, 30 yards. You can actually look back behind you and get an idea of kind of a path that deer's taking. Are we starting to veer one direction or the other? Or are we just barreling straight through on a straight line? If you lose blood, that can kind of help you determine, the best place to start looking to pick that blood trail up again. A flashlight, that's huge. You can't do much blood tracking in the dark. Another little tech tip, a spray bottle of hydrogen peroxide. You can pick that up just about anywhere. It'll have a reaction with that blood. So if you see something on grass or, on a leaf or anything and you're questioning if it's blood or not, you can spray a little hydrogen peroxide on it. And just like when you spray it on a cut, it'll bubble up white for you. And then a cell phone. Everybody should have one of those in their pockets these days. If you get into a spot where you don't really know what to do, call a buddy, have them come help you. There's nothing wrong with learning something from someone else. While you're on that blood trail, being slow and observant. So don't just go 100 miles through the wood or, 100 miles an hour through the woods. That's just going to bump that deer if you have not waited long enough. Don't walk on that blood because there are times where you're going to need to go back to the last point of blood to kind of get your bearings about you. Again, marking identified sign frequently. That's just to kind of help you determine a path of travel. Like it says, you can often see a pattern or a direction that deer's heading. If you lose sign, don't wander around, mark it and start to look for a pattern or a path of least resistance that deer might have taken. Again, don't be afraid to back out and come back with help. It's a lot easier to find a deer with 3 or 4 sets of eyes than it is just yours. And lastly, on tracking, there's some additional tracking support. Dog tracking has become very popular here over the last couple of years. Just make sure that you understand those laws and regulations. I'm sure if there are any questions on that, Jacob can help you. The Oklahoma Blood Trackers Association has a Facebook page that here in about 5 days is going to be lighting up with people that are ready to have a deer tracked. Something kind of new, UAV and thermal imaging. That's something that, a service that's starting to be offered to people. Kind of a new and inventive method for finding a deer. Again, know those laws and regulations before you proceed with that. Guys, that's all we got. So a lot of what we're going to cover, I tend to learn a heck of a lot more we're going to stop sharing. I learn a lot more just by having conversations with people or having people, ask questions and answering those questions kind of more on a face-to-face basis, or in our point, a screen-to-screen basis. But if there are any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. It looks like we've just got a couple here.
Did we want to go over the places of the hunting resources page, and then I'll give it to Jacob, and then we'll do the question.
Yes, I'm gonna let you do that because I don't know what buttons to push
Okay.
on your computer.
So it'll
So
be
we got to go back to share.
Yeah, it'll be share. Just hold on. Let me go back to make sure. Bear with me 1 second.
There.
Right there. Okay, and I want to switch over to that.
Okay.
Okay.
So can you give me a thumbs up if you can see our screen here?
Got
Okay,
it.
I see some random thumbs. Just Jacob's thumb, big
In the
fat
sky.
thumb. Yeah. Thank you guys. This is that page that I was talking about on our website. So I'll just walk you to that from the home page. You'll click on hunting and then hunting resources. And then you'll scroll down here just a little bit to this deer hunting. If you continue to scroll down on that page, it'll say public land deer hunting opportunities, and you click archery. And then we kind of break down, these are all of our WMAs that are open to archery hunting in some way, shape, or form based on kind of region of the state. So based on where you live, you can click on one of those. Like, let's say that we live down by Ardmore and we're gonna interested in hunting Love Valley. You can click that Love Valley page and you can go to area specific hunting regulations. Again, all of the WMA pages are going to look just like this. And you can see same as statewide seasons, deer archery. So you know that it's open, same as our statewide seasons are. If there are any special regulations, they'll be under that part where it says seasons with special restrictions. So that's just a really easy way to find out what is open, where you can hunt, when you can hunt, stuff like that.
I might add too. So if you're more of a visual learner, you like to look at like aerials and stuff of specific WMAs. Once you find out which ones are open for archery, which should be almost all of them.
Almost all of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you go to hunting, you go down to where to hunt. And we talked about this a little earlier too, but we have it broken down into WMA lists, which was essentially what you just saw. We have shooting ranges, we have WMA interactive maps, and then we have the Oklahoma Land Access Program maps. The WMA and the Oklahoma Land Access Program maps, these are interactive maps. So if you click on that, you'll have to hit a little disclaimer and it'll zoom out to the state of Oklahoma. You zoom into your area and you can look at aerials. You can look up, it shows your parking spots, it shows
closed roads. That's
closed
a big
roads,
one. I mean,
yes.
basically each one of the area managers for those properties has kind of gone through with a fine tooth comb to establish those boundaries, to establish what areas are closed, to establish, where food plots might be or water sources might be. So it's a great way to kind of get yourself going as far as your hunt goes.
Yeah, and this is what this is. I don't like to click it because it pulls so much power. It'll like crash my system. So I don't want to mess with it, but you can see where you can go there.
Yep.
And then the OLAP program or OLAP lands are down there
Exactly
too.
the same.
Yeah. So wanted to mention that. Are we done with the hunting resources page? That hunting resources page has recipes, has the last couple of years learn to hunts on it. And we did mention that this is going to be recorded, and I usually get these up within 24 hours on our YouTube channel. It'll be under Learn to Hunt playlists. But we do need to go over regulations. So I am going to stop sharing my screen here and I'm going to hand it over to our resident game warden, Jacob Harriet, to talk about our regulations.
Unmute yourself, Jacob.
Jeez,
Unmute yourself.
He heard my mom voice earlier.
There we go. I got
there
scared.
he is.
All right, guys. My name's Jacob Harriet. I'm Lincoln County Game Warden. So archery's hunting regulations are pretty simple, but there were some big changes this year, especially with the licenses. So I kind of want to talk on that. So currently, well, for one, now when you buy your annual hunting license, which to hunt anything in Oklahoma, you just about need your annual hunting license, and then you're going to buy your deer resident archery license. In the past, we had to buy a deer license for each deer. Now that archery license is going to cover all the deer that you can harvest. So if I go out and hunt, I buy my resident hunting license, I buy my resident archery deer license. That's going to cover all 6 of my deer that I can hunt that season, which is a pretty cool thing for residents. Now, for non-residents, that will be the same, except it'll be a non-resident hunting license and then a non-resident deer archery license, and that will cover all your deer as well. Another big change now: youth hunters or anybody who are under the age of 18. That makes things a lot simpler, and it was kind of confusing before. But now, if you're under 18, you're a youth hunter, and all you need to hunt deer is a youth super license. That youth super license will cover all the deer that you can hunt. Also, it'll cover your turkeys, fishing license as well. Everything is under that youth super license now. So that's pretty cool. So we got our licenses. Now we got to find somewhere to hunt. Whether you're hunting private or public, make sure you're familiar with those boundaries and just know where you're at so you don't get in the bind over trespassing. So archery equipment, if you're hunting with a compound bow, that compound bow needs to be at least 30 pounds. So that's your draw weight. It needs to be able to pull 30 pounds. Recurve or longbow is 40 pounds, and crossbow needs to be at least 100 pounds of draw. All that should be normally is clearly marked on the bow. And that's just to make, be ethical with that shot. That's the poundage we say that can effectively harvest a deer. Broadhead wise, they have to be at least 7/8 inch wide. Now, I don't know any game warden that goes around measuring that when they check you in the field. But again, that's just humane. We want to make a quick, effective kill on these animals. And so that larger broadhead size, the 7 to 8, is required for that. So sunrise and sunset. So with deer, you can hunt 30 minutes before to 30 minutes after sunlight. Uh, that's pretty simple. Illegal archery equipment, you can't have an archery sight that's like a laser unless you're legally blind. So be cautious of that. I've never ran into that in the field at all. So that's not that big of a deal. Oh, let's see. And I'm just going through the reg book right now just to make sure I get everything. So hunter orange, you do not have to wear hunter orange to archery hunt unless there's an ongoing big game season. So during the youth gun season, muzzleloader season, rifle season, and holiday antlerless, you'll have to wear that orange. Also, if you're in an area that has a firearms elk season, you'll need to be aware of that. But we talked about our season dates, so you can shoot 6 deer with archery equipment. No more than 2 can be antlered. And then season wise, archery season goes from October 1st to January 15th. That's a very long season. I like it. That's my favorite time to hunt. I mean, it gives you so many options. If you got to get off work or whatever, you just got a lot of time. And it's also cool because it's so diverse. Hunting October 1st is much different than hunting January 15th. So the deer are doing different things. The weather is very different. So that's kind of neat to get to do all that. Dallas did a pretty good job talking about tracking deer. So you can use blood trackers to track deer. That is completely legal. But the stipulation is you have to notify the game warden who you are and where you'll be at. The dog has to be on a leash the whole time, and you can't have a method of take with you. So you actually have to leave that bow in the truck. You can't take it with you while we're looking for these deer. On that topic, another thing we need to think about is you cannot carry a rifle along with you while you're bow hunting for like pigs or coyotes or something like that. That's a question I get a lot. So you absolutely can have a firearm for self-protection, a handgun or whatever. But if a pig walks in, you can't shoot that pig because you want to shoot that pig. If the pig's attacking you, by all means, it's a self-defense method, but you can't just actively hunt with that firearm. And that's something that we watch for pretty close. You cannot radio tag deer and track them around to hunt them. I don't know if anybody's ever done that, but I've never seen it. You can't do it. You're not supposed to use thermal tracking devices either. Now, Dallas brought up the point of the thermal drone tracking. We have made an exception for that. So if somebody does have a thermal drone and they want to track, it's basically the same rules as the dogs. Don't have a method to take with you. You cannot harass those animals with that drone, but you can use that to find your down game. Other than that, that's kind of the basics. So after we harvest a deer, we're going to need to put a field tag on those animals. A field tag can be anything as long as it has your name, license number, time, and date of harvest. I usually use a duct tape and Sharpie. It makes it pretty easy. excuse me. And then after you put that field tag on there, you have 24 hours to check that deer in. Just some common complaints I get, and archery guys get it the worst normally, it seems like. But if you shoot an animal and that animal runs away and it crosses a fence line, you have to have private landowner permission to cross that fence line as well. You can't just go looking for it. You got to have private permission. Sorry, I got allergies real bad. But if you do cross that fence looking for that animal, that is considered trespassing. Other than that, it's a great time to get some meat, reasonably inexpensive and a long season to do it. So I love archery hunting. I hope you guys have some good luck. And that's really all I have reg wise.
Jacob, did you go over bag limit for archery at all?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. 6 deer. 2 can be
Sorry if I didn't catch that. We'll start fielding some of these questions and I'll bounce some of these back to you that are a little bit more in your wheelhouse. So somebody already asked about crossing property lines. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you can see that deer or not. You have to have permission from the landowner to be on their property to retrieve a deer. A lot of the times that situation can at least be eased by contacting your local game warden. However, they can tell you and that game warden no, and there's not a lot that we can do about it. So that answers that. There was a question that said, what are the rules and regulations of field dressing a deer and packing out or carcass disposal? Of course, you can pack your deer out. You can gut your deer in the field. It's just one of those deals. We talked about ethics a little bit earlier ago. Be mindful of where you are putting your gut pile. Like, don't leave it in the middle of an interior road on a WMA that one of our biologists has to drive by or drive over every single day until that thing gets cleaned up. Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as proof of sex, do you need to leave proof of sex on your meat or on your quarters, or is head proof of sex because we are technically antlered or antlerless deer?
So that's right. So really, the sex of the animal doesn't matter. It's the antlered or antlerless that matters. So we just need to do that. We can basically what we want to avoid. A guy goes in, harvests an animal, goes to pack it out, and he shoots a small buck. He doesn't want to check it in as buck, so he says it's a doe. Now that being said, a lot of things with technology now make it pretty easy. So if I was to check a guy, they shot a doe, they didn't want to carry the head out, but they had pictures time stamped, 30 minutes ago when they packed it out. That would be sufficient with me. Now, different game wardens might be different on that, but that's kind of the way I look at it.
And then on carcass disposal, you can find all the details on carcass disposal on page 35 of our regs. There's a whole section that talks about, you can't dump a carcass in a well or a spring pond, leave it within a quarter mile of an occupied dwelling, so on and so forth. Again, it's just a courtesy thing, folks. Like, don't put a deer where you wouldn't want someone else to put a deer if you lived right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are also things where you can put your deer quarters, or like you've gotten home and you've processed all your deer and you got a bunch of scrap or bones that you don't want. You can put that in your trash can, just in a trash bag in your trash can. Perfectly legal to do that. Let's see.
Yeah, Dallas, let me say one thing on that.
Yeah, go
So
ahead.
that is one of the major issues that I see too. A lot of people will take those carcasses, they don't know what to do with it after processing, and they go kick it out on the county road. So it is illegal, like Dallas said, to dump that anywhere in a quarter mile water source, county road, or residence. So be respectful of that. It makes hunters look really bad when there's a bunch of dead deer just laying all over the road that have been skinned and processed.
Yeah.
But yeah, double trash bag it, put it in your trash service. That's 100% fine.
Exactly. Okay, so Charlie asked, how do we interpret conflicting area-specific hunting regs? For example, Cherokee PHA says deer archery is same as statewide, but is closed for holiday antlerless deer gun, which falls within the archery season's dates. So it sounds to me like you're reading that, it says that archery season is open statewide, and then under closed seasons, it says holiday antlerless deer gun. That means that it is not legal to hunt with a rifle during the holiday antlerless deer gun season, but it would still be legal to archery hunt on that WMA. If you still don't feel confident after reading a regulation, there's actually on that specific WMA page that we went to, like when we went to the Love Valley page, there's contact information for both the game warden for where that WMA lies, and also the contact info for the biologist that oversees that area. So if there's something that you're confused about, or if there's something that doesn't really quite make sense to you, call those folks. They know the answer. So, okay, can you spot and stalk in Oklahoma? Yes, you can. But again, let's be mindful of what we're doing. Like if you see someone in a tree stand 100 yards away, let's not blow up their hunt just so you can have a chance at shooting a deer that's heading their way. Again, the golden rule that you should have learned at 3 years old, let's treat others the way that we want to be treated.
Also, spotting and stalking is more common in western, like open areas
Yes.
as opposed to like woods
Yes.
and forests and stuff. That's a lot harder to do.
So a question, question about the broadheads, 7/8 of an inch width. Prior to or opening up with mechanicals, that's after they're open. So they can be under 7/8 of an inch when they are not deployed. But once they deploy, they need to be at least 7/8 of an inch. I don't know of any broadhead manufacturer that is making a mechanical broadhead that is less than an inch. So most all of them should be good to go. If you're on the fence about it, throw it on a ruler and see. Here's a good one for you, Jacob. I still have my archery tag from last season, which I purchased in January. Does that tag still cover this year's new tag policy?
So yes and no. So whatever you bought in the past, as long as it's still a valid license and you haven't used it, it will cover what that was meant to be. So that archery license from last year will cover one deer for this year. After that one deer, you'll have to buy the normal license that we have now, and that's going to cover all your deer. But whatever you bought it as is what it covers. So like I
Exactly.
said, what one deer for that one archery license from the prior year.
And then there was one last question. It says, and we kind of covered it, but it says, what if the property owner isn't available or able to be located? Tough.
Yeah. So yeah, unfortunately, it's just kind of tough luck. It's kind of on us to kind of plan ahead and try to get a hold of those landowners. Hunt away from fence lines helps a lot. A lot of people sit right on the fence line, they shoot a deer, jumps over. A lot of landowners get tired of that, especially if they're non-hunting landowners or they are hunting landowners and they're hunting a specific deer. You're blowing up their hunt. You don't have to walk in there and find yours. So if they tell you no or you can't get a hold of, you still can't go over there and get it. Every game ward's a little different. I know enough people around my county that if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I shot a deer at one on this property," I'll do my best to find that landowner's contact and try to reach out to him if that guy can't get it. But it is on you as the hunter to do.
Yeah.
So to like reiterate, I think the two things that you can do to avoid this issue in the future is one, don't hunt on fence lines. I see a lot of people putting feeders next to fence lines to pull deer from other properties. And if you shoot that big old deer and then it hops back over, they're just going to be ticked off that you were hunting their deer.
Yep.
And also get to know your neighbors too. If you're going to hunt on a property, make sure you introduce yourself to your neighbors and get on friendly terms with them, because you increase your chances of, if your deer was to hop a fence line, of getting access to that deer.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that can be something that takes your experience to another level, where instead of them saying absolutely not, if you would have just introduced yourself before the season started, they said, heck man, hop in the truck and I'll help you.
yeah.
I mean, so it's something where just building those relationships with the people that hunt properties that border yours can definitely benefit you a heck of a lot more than they can hurt you. But there's not, does anybody else have any questions? That's kind of the questions that were in the chat box. There were a couple that were asking, like, where can we see the presentation? Where can we see the charts? Again, Casey kind of covered that here in 24-ish hours, emergency dependent. Those should be posted up.
I will also respond to anybody that signed up to this class with the recording, the link to the recording too. So you will know when it's up to date. And also, I will typically put a survey link in there. So if you guys let us know how we do on these classes, we would love to hear feedback on it, as with all of our ODWC programs. So you will be getting a survey as well as the recording on this. We got a decent amount of time left. So you guys have any questions? We got the experts here. So, okay. Can we get emailed a copy of the presentation we can print? I think so. I don't see why not. No, I'll get this downloaded on my computer and then I can send that out as well. I'll wait a few more minutes before we wrap this up.
There's no such thing as a dumb question.
No.
I promise we don't know who you are.
Trying to think of anything that I could think that you didn't cover, but we covered basically everything. Do we talk about the difference between compounds and longbows?
Here's a great one. Yes, we did.
Oh,
Are there
there you
any
go.
organizations that take meat donations? Yes. So The Oklahoma Department of Wildlife has a program called Hunters Against Hunger. And that is basically a collaboration where we have paired up with processors all across the state to allow donation deer to be processed and then given to local food banks. So you can find a list of those processors on our website. Up in that search bar, if you just search Hunters Against Hunger, it will tell you all of the processors that are enrolled in that program. Usually it comes with like a $10 donation fee that comes along with that, but we being the department, we pay folks, the processors, to process those deer and then donate all of that meat to food banks. Okay, now they're rolling in. So after you get your license, you still have to buy each tag up to 6. No. So in the past, that's how it was. You had to buy an individual deer archery license for each deer that you wish to harvest. But with the new licensing structure, you have to have your hunting license, and then you just have to buy one $36 deer archery license, and that covers your full bag limit. So 6 deer, no more than 2 of which can be antlered. How'd I do, Jacob? Did I nail it? Look, that's why they pay me the medium bucks. Um, Dave says, can you cover CWD testing locations and policies in place in Oklahoma regarding CWD areas? Yeah, that's actually a great question. So for those of you that don't know, we won't go out too off into the weeds about what CWD is. If you want to know more about that, there's a giant web page on our website dedicated to it. We have had 2 cases of chronic wasting disease in our deer herds. Both of those are up in the far northwest part of the state, one in Woodward County and one in Texas County. In response to that, we have got some CWD testing locations where you can voluntarily drop off your deer head and have that deer tested. There's, let's see, 5 of them, one in Moreland, one in Woodward, one in Hooker, one in Hardesty, and one in Boise City. All of those are just voluntary drop-off freezers. You can find the addresses for those on that CWD webpage. Essentially, all we're needing to have is just the head from that deer. So if it's a doe, just lop the head off, follow all the instructions on the freezer. If it's a buck, go ahead and skull cap that buck, throw the head in the freezer. We'll have test results for you, usually 2 to 3 weeks after dropping off or after we send them in. So it kind of depends on how often we run those. During rifle season, we're running them pretty often. Archery season, it's a little bit longer just so we can let those freezers get a little bit more full before making the 12-hour round trip to pick up all of those heads. But it's essentially just let us know where the disease is and what prevalence rates are so we can better manage that disease. Let's see. Like the game board said, yes, no one tagged from last season. Okay. So Jacob had mentioned that yes, that tag is good from last January, but it is only good for 1 deer. Once you have filled that 1 deer tag, you still need to go buy the $36 tag or deer license, archery deer license, but that does not give you 6 additional deer. At that point, you would only be operating with 5 deer because your season bag limit is 6, regardless of if it were a permit from last year that's still valid or a new permit that you purchased. Someone says with lifetime license, that is all still included, which is correct. Somebody asked, we have deer on our property year round, and this is the first year I've seen 2 this late in the year that still have white spots. Ethically, I wouldn't take one that young, but I'm curious to why they're still being popped out this late in the year. Yeah. So seeing spotted fawns this late into the summer is a great, great, great representation of having a buck to doe ratio that is out of whack. So, we typically like to see 3 to 1, 4 to 1 is achievable. If you have fawns that are being born this late, it's because those does are being bred 2 to 3 months after the peak of the rut. So if you didn't know, does that are not bred during their first estrus cycle, they will actually continue to cycle either until they're bred or until daylight changes enough to kind of quit telling them that it is breeding season. So if you're still seeing spotted fawns right now, it means that you need to shoot some does on your property. Are there any rules regarding if there are young present with a doe? Nope. Not at all. I've always said if they're brown and don't have spots, they're fair game. If you shoot mom, those deer are fully grown to the point where they can survive by themselves, they usually by the time they've lost spots, they're done weaning anyway. So it's not going to be impactful to where you're technically, removing 2 deer just by killing mom if she's with her fawn. Anything else? People are getting brave. It only
I
took
know.
one, it only took one person to start asking questions and they're rolling in. Jacob.
I did have one thing that I left out. So we do antlered and antlerless deer.
Mhm.
An antlered deer is something with antlers above 3 inches of the hairline.
Yep.
So if you shoot a little spike and it's under 3 inches of antler growth, that is considered an antlerless deer when you check it in.
Oh,
Forgot
did we, I know we talked about field tagging, but did we talk about the e-check process at all?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that 24 hours within leaving your hunt area is huge. I'm sure Jacob has a lot of time here. He has gotten to scribble on a piece of paper for somebody not checking their deer in within 24 hours of leaving their hunt area. What is included in a lifetime license? Okay. So this is a long list, and I'm going to miss a couple of them, I promise you. But I think the list of things that's not included is a heck of a lot shorter than what.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
as a lifetime license holder, really the only thing that you would ever have to get would be a HIP permit to chase migratory birds and a federal duck stamp to chase migratory birds or waterfowl. It includes all things deer, all things elk, all things pronghorn. New this year, all things bear. It includes all things fishing. It includes all things turkey. Yeah, so the list of things it does not include are in the reg book under the licensing section. So I hope that answers your question about what's included in the lifetime license. There's pretty much everything. Can you touch on the veteran lifetime licenses too? I'm not versed enough to
Yeah, I can touch on that.
get into that.
So yeah, if you are a veteran, first off, thank you for your service, and we do offer discounted license for that. So if you are 60% or under disability, we have a license. I believe it's $225. I'm not 100% sure on that. And then if you're 100% disabled, I believe that license is like $25, or it was before the license change. I can verify those prices real quick.
I'm not sure.
But it's a good discount for the service that you guys gave to us, so we appreciate that.
You bet. Someone says, I've noticed the scents at Tractor Supply for attracting bucks say last year on them. Does that make them ineffective for this year? Hopefully that makes sense. Say last year on them. Like they have an expiration date, I'm guessing is what.
They were bottled last year, probably.
Oh, okay. I mean the scents work at different times of year, and depending on what scent they are. So really that's kind of discovering what works for you as a hunter. I know a lot of people that use scents and use them effectively. I know myself, I've tried them and seen no difference at all. So I choose not to use them, but that's all going to be personal preference. Charlie asks about any antler spread point restrictions, anything like that. He mentions Texas having it, but is curious if we have it in Oklahoma. We do not have any sort of antler point restriction or spread restriction. Those states that use that usually are doing that because they see a really, really bad discrepancy in the age structure of their herd. So that's built to protect young deer. We actually have a really healthy age structure within our deer herds across most of the state. Another reason why we don't have that is we actually did a pretty good research project on, average number of points at each age class. And for the most part, most of our 1.5-year-old bucks had at least 4 points on one side. So that would make them eligible for harvest regardless of an antler point restriction. And then a width restriction, to me, it's just not something very feasible for our state because a lot of those are like a 15-inch width restriction. If you can tell me the difference between 14 and 7/8 and 15 inches at 250 yards, you've got a lot better eyes than I do. It just gives a reason for a game warden to unneedingly write a ticket, to a kid that shot a deer that is an eighth of an inch shy of being what we would consider a legal buck. So that kind of answers that. Um, some of the scents say last season. Sorry about that. I thought maybe doe P changes each year.
Mhm.
Doesn't change each year, but it can change during time of year. So a lot of the times those scent lures are labeled as doe estrus. That just means that doe is in heat and is, in cycle accepting breeding. So that's what you see a lot of for scents. So again, it's usually time of year to use those would be during that rut period. So, last week of October through about the second week of November would be kind of when I would start utilizing that if that's a tactic that you want to try. Not seeing anything else.
So on those licenses, the under 60% disability is $200, and the 100% disability is, or sorry, 60% or more disability is $25. And then also there was a question about the senior lifetime licenses. They did go up to $60 for a hunting and fishing combo license for senior citizens.
Yeah. So what is the recommended time to wait to track a deer when it was a bad shot? Again, we covered that kind of in the front. If you hopped in late, go back and watch again because we're going to post this. But usually if it's a bad shot, if you're shooting back, into the guts, I'm waiting a minimum, excuse me, I have the hiccups. I'm waiting a minimum of 8 hours to track that deer. Karma, is there any type of point competition? She's trying to manifest getting her first buck this year. No, we don't have anything like that through the department. There might be some local contests or things like that, but I'm not familiar with what they are or where those are or anything like that.
Yeah, the rack madness, if she could,
Yeah,
he or she, I don't know, could take it too.
we do have an event called Rack Madness. It's not necessarily a competition by any means. Any deer that would like to have scored can bring that. There's all kinds of raffles, a lifetime license. The last couple years has been raffled off at that. All kinds of door prizes to bring folks in the door. So if that's something you're interested in, Rack Madness, March 5th this year is what I have seen on the schedule. So pencil that in.
And it's also just kind of fun to look at everybody else.
Yeah,
So if
everybody's
you got a big
bringing
old deer, it's fun to bring it in.
Mhm. But again, we'll score them all and we celebrate them all just like they're the biggest deer in the whole wide world because everybody should be proud of what they harvest.
Any first buck is an accomplishment.
Mhm.
Doesn't have to be a monster. Also, it takes the fun away of shooting any future bucks when you shoot the biggest one out there first. Might as well just
Spoiled
go,
rotten.
you win
Yep.
this one, might as well go to a different thing.
Get a fishing license.
Yeah.
Brother-in-law has a competition he has called Shot. Maybe find it on Facebook under. Oh, okay. So you're talking about that's an archery competition. That's not necessarily hunting. So the Shot 3D is like a big archery competition with 3D targets where you kind of get to hike around on. It's like golf, but with a bow in your hand. They're a lot of fun. Another popular one's the Total Archery Challenge. They've had those locations here in Oklahoma the last couple of years. So yeah, those are fun and they're a heck of a good practice for the upcoming fall. They will humble you in a hurry though, because a lot of those shots, they make it pretty tough. If you've seen pictures, the graveyard of arrows that lay underneath some of those targets, just from either a distance standpoint or a really tight shot window, they're a lot of fun, but make sure you bring a lot of arrows. Nothing else.
Nothing else.
We'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you have the
Oh,
honor.
hold on.
What
gonna say
about
we have-
laws for people with okay, so we're talking about some of our tribal members. I'm gonna let Jacob tackle that.
So there's still a lot of questions. There's a lot more questions than answers. So if you are within the jurisdiction of a tribe on tribal land and you're a tribal citizen, abide by those rules. Now, anywhere that's not tribal land, you're not a tribal citizen or you're not a member of that tribe, the state rules apply. There's still a lot of gray area there. For the most part, if whatever jurisdiction you're in, abide by those rules and regs is your safest bet. To be extra safe, I would probably do both, but that's kind of up to you. I'm in Lincoln County. I'm not in any tribal jurisdiction, so we don't have any specific regulations. I know you go into Creek County and they have some different options there, but it's just kind of figuring out what the tribes are going to do. Things change a lot. So the best bet's just to have your state licenses and, whatever tribal licenses they require. But it's kind of a big mess right now trying to figure all that out. So.
Oh, there we go. I read recently about getting landowner permission to hunt on their property. Do I need a printed out permission slip or anything in particular if I do that?
No, for deer hunting, you don't have to have written permission. It is advisable. Permission is only good for 1 year. I should have touched on that. So if say I give Casey permission to hunt, that's only good for 1 year unless I specify. And to specify, then it does have to be in writing. So I could write, you have permission to hunt my property for 5 years, and then you're good for 5 years. But you do not have to have written permission. Just verbal is good. But if there's an issue, that written permission is worth its weight in gold. Also, just be cautious that landowners change. So if a landowner changes property, you don't know about it, and they gave you longer permission, that's on you as the hunter to know whether you
Don't assume in that situation. I always recommend people have written permission, regardless of what the rules or regulations say. Like Jacob said, that's a huge CYA
Mm.
right
Yep.
there is to have that written permission.
And electronic communication counts as written permission in Oklahoma. So if Dallas shoots me a text, says, "Hey, you can hunt on my property," and go ahead and do this, Dallas. If I give permission, then that electronic text message counts as my written
There
permission.
you go. Yeah, all of the property, all 3 acres of my front yard. Terry had a great question. Are there any WMAs easily accessible for handicap individuals? So the department has a non-ambulatory hunting permit that you can obtain from the department that allows you to drive in areas of the WMA that other people cannot. Again, those WMA maps will show where those non-ambulatory areas are. So that would be my tip to you is get with the licensing folks over at the department headquarters, get you a non-ambulatory permit, and then whatever WMA that you decide to hunt on. I'm almost positive that most all of them have a handicap accessible area. It's not necessarily that like the trails are paved or anything like that, but it does allow you to, kind of have a little bit better access to hunting areas than where the rest of people that do not have that permit have to park.
Mhm.
E-bikes. Yeah, that's a good one. So B Long asked, are e-bikes legal on public? Yes, as long as they are under 750 watts of power. They are legal. Again, this is one of those ethics things where it's just be a good person. Don't bomb off into the woods on your e-bike because that's not very nice. All the interior roads have added on the e-bike. But yeah, that's something that has changed here. I want to say maybe 2 years ago, we kind of clarified that with our law enforcement staff on what was legal and what was not. Is there a minimum amount of land you can hunt on if you are using private land? No. Nope. But again, that goes back to that talk to your neighbors because the smaller piece that you hunt on, the more or the higher the odds are that that deer is going to run off of that piece of property, which can make recovery a little difficult if you get into a bind.
That's also kind of be smart, be safe about it too, because
Yeah, if you're on a
definitely get
quarter-acre lot.
bullets if we're talking, if this is a rifle.
Well, then we get into some laws about inhabited buildings and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff. Again, that reg book kind of goes into a little bit of that. How or where do you renew your HIP permit? That's just a license you purchase on your app. So the Go Outdoors Oklahoma app, you can, if you haven't gotten that yet, I highly suggest doing it. That will have an option to purchase, I say that in quotes, a HIP. Basically, you just add it to your cart and check out for $0, and then that will be added to your account. Again, that has nothing to do with deer or deer archery, but I'm glad people are asking just all kinds of questions because I'd rather you get it from here than from Facebook.
I will have to wrap it up though, because it is 1:01 and we gotta let Dallas get back to his very important
The
business.
job.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys tuning in and we had pretty good attendance for this long, so I appreciate it. I hope you guys learned something and to reiterate, we are going to be posting this on our YouTube channel shortly and I will send a follow-up email after this. Next, I believe we have muzzleloader coming up and you will see these two guys again on there. And after that, we'll do rifle as well. And then I believe in between there, we have a quail upland game learn to hunt class. So get on there and enroll in all of the future learn to hunt program or learn to hunt virtual classes on our Go Outdoors calendar. All right, thank you guys. And yes, I will send the YouTube link, Jacob. Thank you.
Yeah, signing off.
Signing off.